What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Points Per Podcast. Thank you for joining us as always. My name's Eric. That's my co-host Vishy. And today we're going to be peering into our crystal ball. We're looking way ahead into the future, all the way till next August, and we're going to do our best to give you our 2026 redraft rankings for next season. We're going to be doing that on Sleeper through a 3-round mock draft. We can get into the details once we get into the video, but I'm excited to get into this one. We're kind of approaching this as my cats are fighting in the background with each of our own individual rankings. So I'm excited to hash it out with you, Vish. But are you ready to get into this one?
I am. I hope they clash significantly and we have some fun talks. I'm also really excited. I think as of the time we're filming this, which is January 8th, early January of 2026, there's a lot of coaching staff turmoil going on. There's a lot of uncertainty around that. So I'm excited to hear your takes on some players and maybe if their ranking will skyrocket or fall depending on even just a new offensive coordinator. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I think this time of year is a great time to do it. And of course, we're going to get a ton wrong, but that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
So let's pull up the sleeper board here. As I have in the title here, it's going to be a 1 quarterback, half PPR settings, no tight end premium. So hopefully it'll apply to the most people as possible. Vishy, you want to do the honors and kick us off at the 101?
Yeah. I think a lot of people might think this is a toss-up. I'm going to give the edge to this player, but depending on where a certain Miami head coach goes, this could change. Or in this guy's favor. I'm going to give me Bijan here. I don't think there's no point overthinking it too much. He averaged around 20 half PPR points per game this year. Knock on wood, cross your fingers, he hasn't been hurt. He's the focal point of his offense, and his team knows that. And there is a lot of uncertainty. Like he could have new coaching staff. He could have, actually, I don't know about coaching staff, but he could have a new. Yes, actually, he could have a new QB. I don't know, but what I know is he's really good, and they're going to use him. So I think you really can't go wrong with Bijan at 1.
Yeah, I don't think you can either. He's who I have as my 101 currently as things stand. I don't think there's a high likelihood of a new quarterback. I think he's stuck with Penix, but we just got to hope that the coaching staff comes in and manages that to the best of their abilities, puts him in a good situation to succeed. But it's hard to not put him in a good situation with how good he is. So I love that at the 101. I don't think it's going to be of much surprise to people that I will be taking the other running back, Jahmyr Gibbs, at the 102. And as you sort of alluded to there at the beginning, there's been a little bit of chatter with Mike McDaniel having been fired from the Dolphins that he might come in as the OC for the Lions. And oh my goodness, if that happens, Jahmyr to the moon. Like he's the 101 easily for me if that happens. And I love Bijan and I want to hear your take on that, but that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I kind of meant by, Mike McDaniel could also go to the Falcons. We don't know. And so I think in a vacuum, not knowing where he ends up, I'd give the edge to Bijan here, like I said. But, Gibbs could go even more nuclear. So I think it'll be fun to watch the coaching carousel this offseason for sure. All right, at 3, this might not be too surprising either. I'm going to jump ship over to the wide receiver core and take Puka Nacua. He's ridiculously good. He stayed ridiculously good this year. He's going to be a wide receiver 1, if not the wide receiver 1. And he has a great supporting cast in terms of coaches or a quarterback who I believe is staying unless I haven't heard something, or I guess depending on how their options shapes up, who knows. But this general offense has been good. Devontae came in and didn't really hurt Puka too much. I mean, a lot of people will say maybe it capped his touchdown upside because Devontae caught some ridiculous number of touchdowns in the beginning of this year. But Puka's still going to command that volume. He's a very talented player. I don't think that's worth overthinking here either.
Yeah, I like that. He somehow continues to exceed his efficiency from seasons past, which seems impossible, but he's just breaking charts in every which way and had the best fantasy season of his career. So I completely agree with that upside. The only issues would be is Matthew Stafford retiring? Is everybody healthy? I actually had Christian McCaffrey as my 103, so he's going to be my 104. It's really a toss-up between those guys, but I was just breaking ties towards the running backs, considering how the running back position looked this season, and considering he lapped the field this year. He produced better than any other player, regardless of position. He outproduced Josh Allen even as the QB1. And so even though I do think he has lost a step, even though I know he's going to be 30 going into next year, and he has the lingering kind of not health issues, but like people are worried about the missed seasons that he's had in the past. If he's healthy and on the field, this is what he does every time. So I'm happy to take the shot on that upside.
Yeah, I don't disagree that much. I did have a couple of spots lower. As you know, I have believed in and have taken the upside on Christian McCaffrey the last couple of seasons. Kind of just ignoring any quote unquote injury concerns or in being an injury prone player. But I think it is worth putting an asterisk. Like his efficiency numbers were down this year. A lot of people did cover that. And I think my bigger concern was that, I mean, yeah, his volume was ridiculous, which is why he produced, but his supporting cast was also hurt quite a bit. That included his quarterback, a couple wide receivers. Ayuk never came back. Kittle was hurt for a while. I'm not going to fade him. It's CMC. He's going to produce until he retires. But if you had to kind of paint a picture of next year with him being healthy and still not producing at early first round caliber, his age and the supporting cast could contribute to that, but he's still in this tier for sure. I think there's no questions asked there.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend too long on him because, he's that good. He deserves to be at least in this conversation, but I think there's also a counterpoint to that argument that he produced this well in spite of the Purdy injuries. And even sure, maybe the volume got inflated due to Kittle and the wide receivers being out, but the offensive line was also hurt. And so they didn't block as well for him. And with the receiving weapons being hurt, the boxes were stacked against them even more. You know what I'm saying? So
these are fair. Yeah. It could end up being kind of like a net even type of situation where next year there's more things going against him. And yet sounds like he might just produce the same. I believe that.
Hopefully.
He's an incredibly talented player. All right, at the 105, so we're still kind of mid first round going in, or early first round going into the middle now, to put in context. I think I'll just kind of go with an easier pick. Give me Jamar Chase. He's a commodity at the wide receiver position. He remains one of the most talented players in the NFL. And we know he's attached to Burrow, I think, despite some nonsense rumors that were going around for a little bit of Burrow wanting out of Cincinnati or something. So it really doesn't matter who's calling the plays and who else is on the team or competing with him. He's going to produce at a high level. And I think Joe Flacco just called him like the best receiver he's ever played with or something too. He left him a note at his locker.
I mean, that's not crazy surprising.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I take offense to that as a Ravens fan, but also as a Ravens fan, that's a big stamp of approval. So yeah, I think it's pretty simple.
Yeah, no, this is who I have as my 105. The lows were lower than usual this year due to the crazy quarterback situation, but the highs were still there. I trust that it's going to come back. Chase Burrow, set it and forget it. 106, I think this one also is probably pretty predictable. Just based on the season that he just put up. I'm going to have to scroll because this is last year's rankings. But Jackson Smith-Njigba, I think, deserves to be here at the 106. He's awesome. He just put up maybe the best yards per team pass attempt season by a wide receiver in modern NFL history. Like the past 30 years, nobody's done better. Now, that could be argued kind of as a potentially good or bad, depending on how you want to look at it. Kubiak is very likely gone, so we could see things change. But with that offense, Seattle was 30th in pass rate. Hopefully that increases, but also with that, I would expect that level of efficiency to regress, even if it didn't increase. Just that's a crazy astronomical number that he put up. Yeah. And I don't want to take that away from him, but that's kind of what I'm looking at and why I'm willing to have him here at 106.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a knock on him or this season he had or his ability to reproduce that, or really close to that. It's just like the odds are stacked against you to have a season that good again, 2 years in a row. But yeah, I mean, it was a record-setting year with a QB that people thought might just be a bridge QB or not even last the whole season. So
right,
it was a lot of fun to watch. All right, so now we go to the second half of the first round. I know we're not talking tiers, and I don't want to spend time or too much time talking on tiers this video. So far, if I had to draw them, I would probably draw one after the second pick, after Bijan and Gibbs. And then I might, just looking at who I have left here or who is on the board, I might actually draw one around here too. I think we're going to round on the first round with some excellent players, but I think in terms of a high floor and just the feeling of safety, getting one of these guys, really happy getting any of these guys in the early first. But next, I will take Devon Achane, Miami's running back, and I think we touched on Mike McDaniel getting fired. I think he was a big contributor to the offensive scheme in Miami. And so it'll be fun to see how that Miami offense like continues to evolve without him, and now without Tyreek, and now without their head coach, and we might see changes at other key positions too. But
Yeah, Tua
um,
potentially out
yeah,
also.
but he's still an incredible asset. And so I think that knock maybe makes me want to start putting tier breaks places, but he's an incredible asset. He's a ridiculously talented and fast and shifty running back with receiving upside, and he was still used down the stretch, even with all the problems Miami had, at like an 18 points per game in a half PPR type of split or something.
Yeah.
There was some chatter mid-season and even early on about Ollie Gordon or other like Jalen Reagor, other Miami backs taking maybe some of his touches away and reducing his upside, and I don't think we really saw that apply. And with how running backs performed this year in general and how safe of a play they were, 18 points per game is the equivalent of like the wide receiver one, and this is the running back 4 now. I'd be really comfortable taking him here.
Completely agree. It was a toss up for me between him at the 107 or 108, but I absolutely love Devon Achane, and I would bet on his profile any day. Game script independent, catches passes, is incredibly efficient as a runner. Yes, we have to worry about the McDaniel system being gone, that level of creativity, and if Tua is not there as the check down king, maybe his receiving volume decreases. But if both coach and quarterback were back, I think he'd probably be even a little bit higher than this. So I think this is fair.
Cool.
108. I'm going to take the guy that started to cool off a little bit there at the end of the season, but started it red hot. Give me Jonathan Taylor. He does scare me as a profile because I think he's incredibly game script dependent. The opposite of Devon Achane, where not that he can't catch passes, not that he can't make things happen in open space. I think he's proved that he can, but just based on what we've seen in years past, when the Colts are winning, I think this year I heard a stat from Scott Barrett in Colts wins, he put up over 30 points per game. And then in Colts losses, it was just significantly less. I'm not exactly sure what the number was, but we saw at the end of the year with Daniel Jones out and things kind of falling apart that it wasn't nearly the same that it was in the beginning of the year. We hope that Daniel Jones can come back healthy. I do believe and trust in Shane Steichen as an offensive play caller to get the ship righted. But there is a little bit of concern, which is why I wouldn't have him much higher than this.
Cool. I don't disagree. He's who I had next.
All right.
So I think we can kind of leave it at that and move forward. I'm going to take a wide receiver here. Give me Amon-Ra St. Brown. So the Lions season might not have gone kind of the way they wanted this year, and I think they also have some coaching staff changes incoming that maybe could result in Jameson Williams getting maybe a little more unlocked there. But Amon-Ra is still an extremely talented receiver. He's still going to command like at least a 20% target share in that offense. And I'm looking down now, and I think he finishes the wide receiver 3 on the season. This might be season long, maybe not on a per game basis, but nevertheless, he's ridiculously talented. He's going to continue producing at a high level, and if he doesn't, it's probably some sort of negligence on the part of the Lions or just extremely poor play all around on that offense. If they're doing moderate to well, then he's going to perform as well. And I'd be comfortable taking a wide receiver that's probably going to give you 10 to 15 points a game towards the second half of that first round.
Yeah, I like this a lot. I had him one spot later, but again, it's a toss up. He's in the same tier group for me. Even if McDaniel does end up as the OC, I don't think that hurts Amon-Ra in any way, but I do think it probably boosts JMO a lot. That's something that we can talk about at a later date, or maybe if he ends up in this mock draft. But yeah, I think Amon-Ra is just the picture of consistency, and it's hard to envision him ending up anywhere lower than this. I do just want to say things are going to start to shake up here as we get to the back end of the first and into the second. It's going to stray from consensus, I think. My guess, having only glanced at your rankings, Vishy, I think you're going to be the voice of reason here. I think you're going to stay a little bit closer to consensus. You're going to have your own take. I might come off kind of hot takey, but I think the combination of the two, if we can culminate here, is going to put together a really, really good mock draft and that we can look back on in August next year. So I'm
I love
excited.
it. I think basically what we're gonna see is every other pick's gonna be just nuclear, and I'm here to see it.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. But here at the 110, I'm going to take a running back. I'm going to take James Cook. There he is at 26.
All right, man. You hype the pick up a lot. He's exactly who I
No. We're getting there. We're getting there. I promise. I think James Cook has outproduced his ADP for the past 2 seasons, and I think he's in line for a little bit of an ADP correction. So we're going to see him creep into the back end of first rounds here. I am a little bit worried, sort of, that Joe Brady is going to be gone as the OC, who's pushed this run first narrative and led to the crazy volume that he was able to get this year, led him to be the NFL's leading rusher with over 1,600 yards. But I'm also, on the flip side, a little bit excited for what that could mean for the Bills offense as a whole if we get more competent coaching, in my opinion, and put the ball back in Josh Allen's hands. And use James Cook as a receiving back, which is what he came out of college as. Like, he's been kind of capped in his receptions the past 2 years. And if we can get him up around 60 catches, I think he's well worthy of a first round pick.
Yep. Like I said, I had him here. It again might have been an artifact of the lack of receiving options in Buffalo that led to his volume and usage. But you can't deny, like, he had a great year with like 17 points per game in half PPR, and I think there's no reason to believe. I mean, he's tied to Josh Allen, he's tied to that team and how their team culture and how they expect to perform, and I think he's an excellent pick. I think he went a little too low, it sounds like, in this past year's redrafts.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's move on then. I'm going to put an asterisk here with this player, pretty much solely because there's some ongoing allegations that could impact the position. I'm going to take Rashee Rice here. So this ranking only applies if he plays. I just want to make that clear, and I think that's what you do in fantasy. Like, I personally don't understand the middle ground of like, I'm going to drop him a bit because of allegations. Like, I think if he's not going to get convicted, then you take him here, and if he is, well, then you don't draft him. But yeah, I think I'd be happy taking Rashee Rice at the 1-2 turn, given that he's healthy and not suspended. He went nuclear when he came back from that suspension, to the point where, there were murmurs around when he was about to come back of like, should I be trading for him? Like, people were making moves to acquire Rashee before he set foot in the field this year because of the performance that was expected. And he did perform until he got hurt. So I think he's the best weapon there. We might see more people in the offense leave. I don't know if Travis Kelce's retiring. I don't know if he had too much of an impact, to be honest, in the receiving core this year. And I know there's some uncertainty about if Mahomes will be ready week 1, or they might even draft the top tier running back. Shout out Jeremiah Love. But regardless, he's, especially in PPR formats, I mean, he's going to command so many touches and so many receptions, and he's a very talented receiver that the Chiefs like. So might be a little bit of a hot take, but I think he's well warranted at the 1-2 turn.
I like the rationale. I like the reasoning. I didn't have him nearly this high, which is kind of surprising coming from me, considering how high I was on him this past season in 2025. And it has nothing to do with allegations. Maybe I should have had him higher. I think potentially with Travis Kelce leaving and vacating that role that he's held for so long with the Chiefs, that maybe that could open up even more volume. I don't think that Rashee is as talented as the group of receivers that he's going to be drafted around if he goes this high. And that does worry me slightly, but the role is incredible. So it's hard for me to say that he should be much lower. But with that, we can move on to the last pick of the first round. I'm going to stay at the wide receiver position, and I am going to take, he's right here, CeeDee Lamb. A little bit of a down year this year with things going as they did. It's slightly disappointing just based on the offensive environment, but he also dealt with the high ankle sprain for most of the year after coming back from that injury. We've seen that in the past with wide receivers. After coming back from high ankle sprains, they tend to produce a little bit less, but then they bounce back the next season. He's still elite. He's still in a great offensive environment. We'll see what happens with Pickens. I fully expect him to be back on the Cowboys, but it's not a guarantee. And so, this one is fairly simple, I think. Do you agree, CeeDee Lamb, first round pick?
I have him. I couldn't decide between him and Rashee really to close out the first. Yeah, and it might be surprising. Like, he was the wide receiver 15 in points per game, and I think George Pickens was like 6, his teammate. But I guess, like you said, there were some other circumstances. He was a little hurt. I think we expect positive regression, and I think we do think he's a better receiver overall. And so, as he's been the last couple of years, I think this is a safe pick. I think it's a decent floor, and I think there certainly is upside as long as Dallas continues to be somewhat of a moderately high octane offense. I don't really know what's up with them, but
I expect them to be.
Yeah, I think he's a very safe pick there. Cool. Well, let's just jump right into the second then.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna stay with the receivers here. I anticipate you're about to bring up some running backs. So I just want to make sure this guy gets drafted as the voice of reason. Give me Drake London here.
Okay.
So I think obviously the situation is similar to Bijan. He's in the same team. A lot could change in Atlanta, and that could affect Drake. A lot of things could happen, but he was still a top 10 receiver this year, and barring some injuries, and I think Atlanta does have other needs to handle than maybe offensive weapons at this time. I think he's locked into the alpha receiver slot, and I think Bijan is locked into the running back alpha slot there, and I think that makes them safe picks again with high floors and decent upside. For all we know, new coaching stuff could come in and unlock him even further, and we know that he's extremely talented on a team that hasn't had the most success, and so I think there could be more positives coming for him.
Yeah, I like the rationale. I didn't have him much lower, in the same tier, basically. He played through injury all year as well, just like we talked about with CD. And so I think his ceiling was capped just by the fact that he was a little bit hobbled out there. He played with a pair of below average to bad quarterbacks and still finished, like you said, as a wide receiver 7 in points per game. I don't see the quarterback situation changing. I think they're going to be stuck with Penix. We talked about that with Bijan, at least for one more year. But yeah, I'm excited to see what the new coaching staff brings. And I know that London is talented enough to warrant this draft selection. So we'll go to the 202. Let me make sure I'm in the right spot on my rankings. Yeah. Okay. So here comes the hot take time. I don't know how far I'm going to have to scroll, but I want Travion Henderson. Oh, he's right there. Look at that. Give me Travion Henderson, man. Like from week 9 on, he was averaging 16 points per game. That would have slotted him in as the RB8. Ben Gretsch is a analyst in the space that I have a lot of respect for, and I like to read a lot of his articles. He put one out this season talking about yards after contact and breakaway runners. To simplify it to its base form, obviously he goes very in depth. I highly suggest you guys go check it out. But his simple conclusion was draft running backs that can house it from distance. And if there's anything that Travion Henderson can do, it is that. He showed us that plenty of times throughout the season when he was finally given not even, full reign of the offense. He was never given a ton of volume, but when he was given enough, he showed us that he can have those just explosive game, blow up game potential. He had multiple 30-point games. Unfortunately, Ramondre was still fairly impressive this season. And so I don't know that he's going to be gone. If he is, then I might get absurdly high on Travion, but this team is trending up. And so I'm going to continue to bet on the explosive players.
Yeah, no comment. I had him one spot away. I don't think it's too hot takey. Right. No, I did change my rankings after you saw him today or yesterday. Right. It's not. I don't think this is that hot of a take at all. The reason that if you look at his season long numbers and fantasy points, it's not higher is because he just bloomed late because they gave him some space. I think there's some injury concerns kind of on the whole with the Patriots, but like you said, the team was on the rise. I think he certainly took over the running back 1 role there, and he's a younger player that's more dynamic. Again, I think it might be malpractice if they don't give him the keys to the running back room at least as the RB1 next year, or at least RB1A. Sorry. No, I think it's a phenomenal pick, and I wish I had him on more teams. I think overall great. Speaking of yards after contact, I'm gonna take another running back here. Give me Ashton Genty.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Bro was not in a nice situation this year.
No.
I don't think he gave us much to think he's not talented. I think that's evidenced by some of his games that he was able to break away on long runs, or just got the receiving volume that I think he should demand. He had, I think, multiple games this year of over 30 points per game in half PPR. So yeah, he had crazy upside, and he went nuclear in a couple. Unfortunately for him, his supporting cast, the O-line, which we heard a ton about and we've talked on the podcast about a couple times, was just awful. So that his at some point his yard after contact was like higher than his rushing yards because he was getting hit in the backfield so consistently. So I think we know his draft capital. There'll be a new staff that comes in, and they're certainly not going to look at him and say that's a player we don't want to use anymore. That's like
Yeah.
a artifact of the past. If anything, like they should be really. He's a fresh toy to play. Like they should use him. They should use him like crazy, and I think they will. And I think like him and Brock Bowers offer the Raiders kind of like a unique offensive scheme, but still a good one. So I'm pretty comfortable taking him here. I think he's still finished like on the fringe of an RB1, even after like that disastrous season that the Raiders just had. And so I think that this is testament of his value and how like he will be used and his upsides are there.
Yeah. I like all of what you said. I did have him a little bit lower, mostly just because of not getting burned by him specifically this season, but more like the draft strategy of having him and Bowers as high as they were in 2025 and then having the entire offense collapse and them both,
Yeah.
not being it's not that they weren't useful, but they definitely weren't worth what they were picked at. And so I
Sure.
have them both a little bit lower than maybe even I want to. I do believe in Genty for sure. So I like that there. Let's go to the 2-4. I don't know if this one's going to be hot takey. Maybe we'll agree on this. I'm going to stay at the running back well. We got to keep pumping these running backs up. Give me Amarian Hampton. Okay. People might look at the end of the season and be a little bit confused by this, just because there was kind of a committee between him and Kamani Vidal. And I'm not saying that that's for sure going to go away, but I think it's going to go away. I think that was easing him back from his injury, and that he wasn't fully 100% yet there to end the season. We'll see what happens in the playoffs if they can make it past the first round. The biggest thing for me is that Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt are probably going to be back healthy, and that offensive line is going to be kick ass, and Jim Harbaugh is going to want to run the football. So I don't know that I have to say a ton much more than that. I'm really excited to see what he can do behind that offensive line. And I should mention, he's actually a very capable pass catcher and proved that many times this season. Had a bunch of games over 5 targets and 5 receptions, which I wasn't expecting necessarily from his profile. So good to see.
Yep, I agree. I had him here as well.
Nice.
I think this was kind of an up year for running backs in general. Maybe it was injury luck or like the lack thereof. But there's just a lot of young and veteran running back prospects with pass catching upside. I wouldn't be surprised if just here RB is just once again a great strat for next year. Like looking at this board, I'd be happy with Amarian Hampton as my RB1. That could give you 20 points a game. Like this is a good crowd to be surrounded by, for sure. And I think he honestly he's pretty interchangeable likely with even kind of going up to James Cook. Like I think he could perform better than James Cook and no one would be surprised. So maybe there's some kind of a tier form in there in like the latter part of the first and into the second. And I'm definitely more confident about pretty much everyone we've drafted than the players that are upcoming. I have a little bit of a tier break here.
Yeah.
But the show must go on. So
let's see.
Maybe I'll take the safe route. But give me the first tight end off the board here. Give me Trey McBride.
Yeah.
I think going into week 18, he was tied for the most receptions in the league. And then I think Puka beat him out to it eventually. But he's ridiculous. And I think Brock Bowers will come up, and I think they should go in likely similar places. Brock Bowers is currently injured, I think, but honestly, they both have uncertainty in terms of who will be throwing to them next year. Like the Cardinals QB situation, it's not that clear. Raiders, I don't think is either, unless you're just a Mendoza believer. But Trey McBride's an incredible tight end. He has the ability to get open, and he could now that he's kind of blossoming into his career, he could just have that 8-year stretch like Kelsey did, where he's just a consistent receiver on that team, a team that they supposedly have weapons, but maybe they haven't used them right or used them well enough. There's just no reason to believe that the tight end one this year won't produce again next year. And in redraft, we know that value over replacement stat that people love to look at with tight ends, it really does matter at the higher end of that. And I think he could just give you that 10-point advantage over your opponent every single week. So I think he's well worth a second round pick.
Yeah, this is exactly where I had him.
Cool.
Or at least he was next on my list of players. But yeah, we're talking about a guy that just put up the 3rd best tight end season of all time. He just matched the Kelsey's best year. It's we need to put that into context. Yeah. How amazing what he just did was. I think he's well worthy of the 2-5, if not above that. He's about to have a new coaching staff and new quarterback, which could be exciting, could go the other way. As much as we might want to trash Brissett, just the amount that he was willing to air it out and say, F
Yeah.
it, McBride's down there somewhere. Like, that's important and worked out for his fantasy value. So we'll see who they bring in, because it doesn't look like it's going to be Kyler. It could be Brissett again, but who knows? But yeah, I like that pick a lot. Here is where you might need to bring me back from Mars. Can I search?
Surprise me.
It's going to be the first rookie off the board. I'm just going to pick somebody with the last name Love. Oh, and they have the first name Jay. Let's go. It's Jeremiah Love, baby, the Notre Dame running back. Obviously, we don't know the landing spot, but the buzz right now is that he's likely to go somewhere in between where we saw Bijan go and where we saw kind of like Gibbs go. So in the top 15, basically, if you want to simplify it. And if that's the case, looking at Tankathon right now at the draft order, that means he could go to New Orleans, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Dallas, the Rams. Like, if he goes to any of those spots, I'm pretty excited. So I'm not as worried necessarily if we see him go somewhere in that range about a Genti situation. I hope. Maybe I'll be eating my words, but I know that he's incredibly talented. He has the 3-down skill set. I think it's warranted.
Sure. For sure. Yeah, I'm excited that we put rookies in this. I wasn't sure if kind of we'd kind of bite the bait on that, but yeah, I mean, if he gets drafted high there, he's going to perform. And like the landing spot you mentioned, kind of like the mid kind of first rounds or early to mid first round, would be gold there, and that'd be silly not to use him. I do want to note, I think you're seeing that now. That is the QB Jordan Love.
Yeah, I knew that. I
There,
just
but
it probably shouldn't be Jordan Love, because people will be like, "What are we talking?" It should be somebody random. Love, Josh Love.
yeah,
How about that?
there we
So
go.
it's
Perfect.
clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think folks will know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about Jeremiah Love here, the rookie. He's going to be an incredible running back. If you haven't heard too much about him, he's likely on the first half of the first round of the real NFL draft, and I think this is a great place to put him. All right, this is gonna. Oh man, it's gonna start getting fun. All right, give me someone here who. I mean, this will be later than probably he's ever been drafted, or certainly was drafted last year, and it was unfortunately due to injury. Give me Malik Neighbors.
I love it.
Big fan of him. Malik Neighbors is an incredibly talented wide receiver. He was put in a situation that wasn't the best of the Giants. Another team with a lot of uncertainty. I mean, for all we know, John Harbaugh could land there. And there's been some rumors about that.
Yeah.
But it looks like, at least for now, they've decided they're in a stable QB situation. One that's not too bad. Their offense did not look terrible or too terrible this year. And this, of course, assumes health. This assumes that he makes his ACL recovery well, and that he's kind of back up to even 80 or 90% of the speed and the ability he had. But I think he's just too talented a receiver to let fall too much further. His game IQ is high. His ability to separate is high. And when he's on the field, he commands touches. And so I think the second round is where I put him.
You definitely did change your rankings since I last looked at him, but I like it because this is exactly where I had Neighbors. I absolutely love the player. His jersey is hanging on the wall right above me. I had to trade him away in a dynasty league on a contender, and it pained me to do it. I think people will probably have him later due to injury concerns, especially after the most recent reports that it was more complicated than just a simple ACL tear. There may have been other ligaments involved. He's still in a brace at this point, well after surgery. Obviously, that is concerning, but if we're assuming that he's back by week 1, then there's no reason to have him ranked any lower than this. He's an absolute baller. Jackson Dart looked a lot better than people expected him to, and I think he's going to have an improvement in terms of coaching staff coming his way. You mentioned John Harbaugh. If he comes, he might bring Monken with him, and I'd be ecstatic about that.
Sure thing.
Let's go to the 2-8, and I think we'll complete the Raiders stack. I'm going to draft Brock Bowers here. Obviously, a little bit of an unfortunate season from him. He was another guy that dealt with injuries for really like half the season. And I wanted to rank him higher than this, but again, we kind of talked about it with Genti, where I'm just feeling a little burnt by ranking both of these Raiders as high as we did last year. And so I'm worried, even with the potential for Mendoza to come in and new coaching staff to come in, that we shouldn't get out ahead of our skis. But he, the upside, it's hard to say unmatched after what we saw McBride do this season, but he had a 45-point game this year, dude. Like, he's unbelievable. The fact that he's not being put in the position on this team to do that more often is really disappointing. But new coach, new QB, I can't put him any lower.
I don't disagree. That's where I had him as well.
Right,
Yeah,
nice.
there's uncertainty, but I don't think he should go too much further for far below Trey McBride.
Yeah,
I think when we kind of consider some of these players and we look just in their position group, like I think Trey McBride and Brock Bowers is the 1-2 at the tight end position. And I mean, yeah, Trey McBride had a phenomenal season, but I don't think Bowers should be much further behind if he is the second best player in that position group. Very happy with that. I think there's a couple other guys we might touch on them. We might touch on Tucker Kraft and a couple others down the line.
we'll see.
But I think these two are the clear top two in the tight end position,
Yeah,
and they're
for
very
sure.
talented. All right, cool. Starts getting pretty fun here. I won't be a
Fun.
Ravens homer yet. Give me Nico Collins, wide receiver.
Okay.
I think the Texans offense is fun. Their defense this year was ridiculous. So shout out to them. They're gonna be in the playoffs. They're gonna have a fun game I think on Monday against my ops. But and well, actually, I want to mention one more thing too. Is like there's some competition emerging there. Some of those two young
Yeah.
guys, Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, they had some great games. They had some deep targets for whatever reason. They had some kind of what I really would consider breakout games for them, which we kind of expected going into the season. We knew that CJ Stroud would have some targets, and he's good enough for a quarterback to support those weapons. And I think they didn't have maybe the hottest start to the season, but Nico Collins is the wide receiver one on that team. I think there will be others in the field, but I'm hoping that they just kind of open up the field more for him and they do spread the ball out, but in a favorable way to Nico. I don't think his contract's up with them yet. He's very talented. I'd be happy with him as a wide receiver I'm getting late in the second round.
Yeah, I agree. I think he belongs in this range. I had him slightly lower, but I'm not going to nitpick. The only thing that worries me, and it doesn't even really worry me with him going at the 2-9, is that the defense is going to continue to be that good. The coaching staff is going to stay the same. And so they're not going to ever push themselves on offense. Like they're just going to continue to play it safe and run the ball.
Sure.
And so they're never going to unlock Nico's true potential, which we hoped we would be able to see because he does have that monster season in him. And it's probably just never going to come, unfortunately. But yeah, the talent is there. You got to draft a guy like that, at least in this
and
range.
I mean, he was still the wide receiver 10, I think, on the year or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, we're nitpicking here because we're wishing he could be like wide receiver 3, but
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you're right though. Like with the defense that good, they could run the ball more. Maybe next year, just Woody Marks as the star of the Texans.
Please no. Hopefully not. Let's go to the 210. This is the first one that I'm not like excited to make the pick. Kind of boring. I'm gonna go with Josh Jacobs. The role is just too good. He's going to continue to have it. I think that the team is going to continue to be good enough that they can rely on the run game as, kind of the staple of their offense. He still had a good year, but it was probably not quite as productive as it could have been if he had stayed healthy. He's another guy that was battling injuries all year and kind of playing through it. And so that brought his numbers down a bit. But I expect this Green Bay team to continue to be good next year and him to maintain the role that he has. It's not exciting. It's not sexy, but the status quo is going to continue and he deserves to be up here.
Yeah, don't disagree. I had him there. I agree with pretty much everything you said. Yeah, I'm between two guys here. One, I think, so I put together somewhat of an analyst consensus. I think we did discuss this offline. I think I showed it to you. Obviously, there's no consensus now. These are basically just listing out a couple of different analysts that have published kind of way too early rankings and looking at maybe what the rough consensus would be. Between a player here that should have gone already and between a player that they have much lower. And I'm going to go with the player much lower, and that's Derrick Henry.
Okay.
Man's getting old.
Yeah.
And we know the cap on his receiving upside. We know that the effect that Lamar can have being his quarterback. I'm a little confident of this because of a few things. First, he is under contract through next year. I don't expect him to leave the Ravens this offseason, even though we're entering a season of a lot of unknowns. But number two, I think the team saw, regardless of who's coaching it next year, the team saw the value of everyone complaining that he needed more touches.
Yeah.
And then saw what happened in that Green Bay game when he got more touches. Albeit like their defense isn't the best. They lost Micah Parsons, but it was he looked like he looked in like high school in that game. And I think they really do think, again, I bring up negligent. I expect the coaching staff to still use him to his potential next year before he retires or before his contract's up, and who knows what happens after that. Analysts maybe aren't the biggest fans because we know receiving numbers aren't the highest, and there's a lot of other things going against him. And his O line wasn't particularly great this year. But he's kind of like Seams. Like until he retires, like he demands volume, and he should get it. And when he does, he had one of his most efficient seasons yet this year. So I don't see reasons for a decline.
Yeah, the thing for me, like I don't care about his age at this point. He's already like that's in the past. He's already broken all of the rules. I don't care how old he is. It's really, is this Ravens offense going to get back to what we saw in 2024? Or at least somewhere close to that, right? Because it was nowhere near that this year, and he was still able to produce at a pretty high level. Certainly, warrants picking him in this range, even if they were to stay kind of around that range. If they do find a way to get back to where they were, then this is going to look crazy. He should go way higher. But because of how game script dependent he is, if things get any worse, this could also look bad. Like it's a little bit risky in both directions. But I fully understand it, and I had him in a relatively similar range as well. I'm going to take a guess. Is the guy that you thought should be picked George Pickens?
No.
Oh, it's not. Well, that's who I'm going to take. If I can find him, I should have. There we go.
There he is.
So we talked about it with CD Lamb a little bit, that CD was playing through injury, and so that could have affected his kind of target earning potential. And we saw that George Pickens had his best games and those like that crazy stretch when Lamb was out. And so I think that we should, take that into account, considering he finished as the wide receiver 6. I think, putting him all the way down here at the 2-3 turn does take that into account. He had plenty of productive games with CD in the lineup as well. And I do expect, like I said, for him to be back with the Cowboys. I expect this offense to be humming the same way that it was this year. The next year under Schottenheimer again, I really liked what he brought to this offense, especially if they retain Clayton Adams. He's a guy that I'm looking not for the head coaching carousel necessarily, but if he gets moved to be the OC somewhere, I'm really excited for what he could do. He and Schottenheimer have been a great pairing here in Dallas. And if they stay there, I'm really excited for this offense once again in 2026.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I wanted to make some note. I forget. I think it was a tweet that I saw. It was someone basically bringing up that, Dallas has always been kind of like a happy pass first offense. And if they bring in a good threat at running back, like a lot of things could change and Pickens could maybe get left in the dust. Like Javonte had a great year. They had a great running back. Javonte is a very talented running back, and he had a phenomenal year. And Pickens was still the wide receiver 6. I don't think that's a valid argument. Yeah, he might not perform wide receiver 6 again, but that's why we're taking him as the wide receiver 10 here. Like we're taking that into account, and we're dropping him a bit and saying we're expecting some regression. It's still a really good performance, and like you said, nothing's really changing there that makes us think otherwise.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, let's go into the third. I might be a little quicker at my blurbs here because I know we're going long on time, and this video isn't going to be too long. But here, the player that I think a lot of folks have higher, Justin Jefferson. I'll take him here.
That's fair.
Wide receiver. And I'm not happy about it, and that sucks to say because he's phenomenal. And I don't think people really expected him to have this bad of a year. There was we didn't know how good or bad in some cases 9 would be this year. JJ McCarthy, and he wasn't that good. And this is why Justin Jefferson had such an awful year. And I think it might be expected that might not change too much.
Yeah.
Which is really scary. And what else? There's one other thing I wanted to say. I think it was Justin Boone. I think he had the best year as a fantasy pro analyst. They do their analyst rankings and see who the most accurate was, and he was the most accurate. And I think he had Jettis at 3. The most accurate fantasy analysts and fantasy pros had Justin Jefferson at 3 in his draft rankings. It's unpredictable, and that's why we're dropping him from 3 to the 3-1. Or maybe you think he should go much later, but I think that the team didn't have as great of a year, but they should get their bearings cut a little bit. If JJ McCarthy remains QB, he should improve. And if not, they should bring someone who will hyper-target Justin Jefferson because he is still a very good football player. And him going in the 3rd round seems pretty fair to me.
Yeah. I don't want to spend too much time. Justin Jefferson is way too good to be down here, but JJ McCarthy is way too bad for him to be much higher. So please, Mac Jones or Brissett to the Vikings, and we'll see what we can do. We can move him up after that. Let's go to the 3-2. Who's next up on my list? Oh, another guy that has been egregiously underdrafted, Chris Olave, man. Chris Olave deserves to be up here, especially after what he did in the fantasy playoffs, carrying a lot of teams to the championship if you had him. Um, I want to put him higher than this, even just considering how talented I think he is and the fact that he's going to be paired with Kellen Moore as the play caller there in New Orleans for years to come. But, I like what Tyler Shuck showed us. There's no guarantee that he's going to continue to play at that level. In his second year, we've seen slumps come. And I do expect New Orleans to add a receiver, whether that be through free agency or through the draft. The free agent pool isn't that exciting. I think Alec Pierce is like the headliner, assuming George Pickens goes back to the Cowboys. So that wouldn't affect my rankings too much. But if they bring in a high-end talent through the draft, then that could change things. But this is kind of the floor for where I feel like he has to be drafted, considering the season he just put up.
I completely agree.
I like it.
I wish he was going sooner. I think there's just a lot of other good players on the board, but I think he's a phenomenal pick there. And it sounds like they're going to stick with Shuck. I'm pretty happy with that. I think curious to see what that offense will look like next year.
For sure.
Maybe with Jeremiah Love. All right, moving on. At the 3-3, I'll take AJ Brown. I think the Eagles receivers had kind of like a rocky start to the year. A lot of people were talking about
kind of
their offensive coordinator and what was up with them, what kind of schemes they were pulling. And unfortunately for the people complaining, they were still winning games. And so it was kind of difficult to kind of bring logic into the argument. But AJ Brown's extremely talented receiver. He's a wide receiver one on that team. Wide receiver one's on a good team that's winning and making the playoffs. Probably shouldn't go much later than the third round. He had a couple great games towards the latter half of the season once the Eagles, as a whole, started using him and Devonta Smith more. Don't really see much of reasons that'll change. Happy with him here.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I had him just slightly lower. I have my doubts about kind of the direction of Philly if Nick Sirianni decides to keep this coaching staff together. I was not impressed with Kevin Patullo. I'm worried about Lane Johnson leaving and kind of the status of that offensive line kind of degrading. But yeah, I think he deserves to be in this range for sure. I'm going to stay in the wide receiver pool. We got a little bit of a blue run going on right now. I'm going to bring in Devontae Adams. I must have scrolled past him.
Probably.
There we go. He's also getting older. What is he going to be, like 32?
Something old, but
something like that. But he's aging incredibly gracefully. And like we talked about with Puka, like the only things you have to worry about is Stafford back and is everybody healthy? And if those two things are true, Devontae is going to continue to dominate. And assuming McVay stays, which at this point, I don't think there's any worry about that. So yeah, with that offensive mind and that quarterback at the helm, Devontae is going to continue to produce.
I agree. Yeah, I think people might point out a discrepancy between how he produced as like a wide receiver, top 10 wide receiver, and where we're drafting him, which is like the 13 or 15, something like that. And that's just because we expect some touchdown regression. Like he was scoring like a touchdown or two a game. It's really not feasible. He is hyper talented. And if he's 1-on-1 with a cornerback and they're on the 1 yard line, like you're gonna get a touchdown with him. But
I'd throw it to him too.
I can't even throw it to him. But I don't expect that to continue. Statistics would tell us that likely it's not going to continue at least at that clip. But he's very talented. You're getting him in middle of third round as wide receiver. Phenomenal. And speaking of wide receivers, I will not be taking one here. I will jump ship to take the first quarterback, Josh Allen. Okay. This was not a good year, and Eric and I discussed this offline a little bit a couple days ago. Not a great year for early round quarterbacks or that strategy as a whole. I think out of the top 5 quarterbacks, I think Josh Allen was really the only one that succeeded, but he did succeed, and he succeeded very well. And if you had him and you drafted him, it was not a loss of a pick. You did not really regret it. He certainly produced for where he was drafted, and I do expect that to continue. I am of course wary of the rest of the quarterbacks. Eric and I were talking, and the other quarterbacks that ended up performing well at a high clip were ones drafted in like the 12 to 16 range. We're talking like Drake May, even Dak, and a few others that of course won't come to mind. Stafford, a couple others won't. Yeah, it won't come to mind right away as I'm yapping. But Josh Allen is one of those that also has rushing upside and has continued to show why he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And I'd be happy taking him in the middle of the third as kind of a core piece in my team.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't want to derail us, but I do think this brings up an interesting strategy discussion, something that Will and I touched on in our last video in terms of lessons learned from 2025. That late round quarterback strategy is back like it never left because it kind of never left. But there was a couple years there where the elite QB narrative was getting pushed up, and not that that was necessarily wrong, but we saw that narrative really kind of fall through the whatever. I don't know what phrase I was looking for, but it was bad. It was bad this year. Quarterback scoring in general was the worst in like the past decade almost. I think I don't have the stat immediately in front of me, but it was very, very low. And so it just begs the question: do you want to invest in a quarterback this high, regardless of who it is? But if it is going to be anybody, Josh Allen makes a lot of sense. And if Joe Brady leaves, what we talked about with James Cook, and they put it in his hands, he could go nuclear once again. So this could be a great spot. Middle of the third round here at the 3-6. I'm going to take Chase Brown. I don't know why I have an aversion to Chase Brown. This isn't exciting to me, but he absolutely deserves it with the way that he ended this season, and not even ended, but just like as soon as what's his name? Their quarterback that came in before Flacco, Jake Browning. If it was only the Jake Browning games that Chase Brown really struggled. I have it here. If you remove the Jake Browning games, he averaged 17 points per game. So that's pretty huge. And that would have made him the RB6 actually ahead of James Cook. I have in my notes here that I'm honestly probably too low on him, the same way that I have been with Kyron year after year, just because I feel like it's a similar kind of profile to bet on that I don't like to bet on, but I think it's warranted.
Don't disagree. Honestly, I was between him and Josh Allen, and this third player who, well, he's in the same team as Chase Brown. That's T. Higgins. I'll take T here. I think we'll start in a clip where after a few more receivers, they're not as appealing, and I think T is still very appealing. I think he's one of the few wide receiver twos, similar to Devontae, where they could give you wide receiver production on any given week, and they have several weeks this season, both of them, and there's no reason to expect that won't continue next season as well. I think he's a great player. He's attached to Joe Burrow. There's not too much else to say there, and there's enormous upside if Jamar Chase, for some reason, does ever go down. He hasn't really yet in his career, and that's obviously it's a good thing. We never wish for that. But T also has a ton of contingent upside there as well.
Yeah, I think you put that perfectly. I don't have anything to add, and I like that draft position. Tell me if I'm going crazy. I want Cam Scatterbo here.
I won't say it. I won't say it. I don't want to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to show you my draft board, but I'm not going to say it.
Yeah, fair enough. I want to be higher on him even. Like, he was so good. Like, if you remove week 1 where he only got 4 touches, he would have averaged 16.3 points per game. That would have been good enough for RB7, Mr. Blurry over there.
Yeah. All right, time out. Sorry,
Vishy made me cut the video because he didn't like that he was blurry. That's kind of lame. Anyway, back to Cam.
Anyway,
obviously, I am concerned about the injury recovery. That was a devastating injury that he suffered, and so this is assuming health. I've tried to stay up to date with some of the injury doctors on Twitter. Jeff Mueller is my favorite. Go check him out if you haven't. There is a little bit of optimism there. I am worried about the early part of the season, whether he'll even be playing or if he'll be 100%, probably not. But he was like a mid-level RB1 this year when he was healthy. And just based on the vibes in New York and the energy that he brought to that stadium, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be again once he is healthy.
I mean, why wouldn't you want your running back getting into fights at WWE events? Like, I don't know what vibes those are, but they sound successful. So, yeah, absolutely. Great pick here. Honestly, I think we're going to struggle to get everyone that we might want towards the tail end of the third that we like into these 4 picks. I'm looking at my list. I'm not going to follow it. I don't want to because I think there's a few players that just have more upside than the rest.
If you take the guy that I want to take, I'm going to be so mad.
I don't think I will. I mean, the odds that are low, but no, there's no way. This guy does not have that good of a quarterback. Give me Tet.
Okay, all right. I like Tet, but that's not who I was thinking.
Yeah, I've talked a lot about like wide receiver ones, and maybe I play into that a little bit because he is the best receiver on his team, and maybe that doesn't mean as much when you have players like T that the second best, but they're just on a better offense in general. But I think that he was a rookie and he performed really well, and I'm actually pretty excited to see what they do with him in the postseason, however short it may be.
It'll be
He's a
short,
great.
trust me.
Hey man, I'm a Panthers fan now. The Ravens are done.
Okay.
Yeah, the Panthers aren't a phenomenal offense. The quarterback's not the best. I mean, he's not like a top 5 QB in the league, but Ted's extremely talented, which is why he was drafted so high last year, both in rookie drafts and NFL draft. And I think this will be another offseason for him and his quarterback to mesh and for the team to maybe scheme him into some more plays. We saw that when he was throwing the ball in one-on-one coverage, he caught it the majority of the time. He's very talented. We saw that in college, and I think he's a very. I want to buy into the talent here, and towards the end of the third round, and take him as an asset on the team.
I agree. Ted's awesome. Give him the ball more. If they do, he should be higher than this. But yeah, this is a round where I have him as well. The guy that I was so happy that you didn't take, so that I can really we can have this discussion because I know we're both in on him. Luther Burden. Let's go. Let's bring him into the third round. He's good. He might end up higher than this if nut jobs like us continue to talk him up throughout the offseason. I have I don't know if it's going to be on the screen or if it's going to stay on this window. Oh, we'll switch. Nice. Rookie wide receivers with 2.5 or more yards per out run since 2014. Look at this list, man. And he is at the top above Puka, Odell, AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, and Jamar Chase. That is quite the list to find yourself on.
It's okay.
It's decent at best. But no, I really enjoyed watching him this season. I think the tape spoke for itself. He was really, really exciting. And when he was given the opportunity, he excelled. And I hope that he is put in a position to be competing for the wide receiver one of that team with Rome Odunze. And if he is, I think he's going to excel, especially in a Ben Johnson offense that really suits him well, I think.
Yeah. I think the reason a lot of people will have him lower, I would be surprised if his ADP when redrafts start happening later this year is anywhere near the mid-third round or even late. I'd be surprised, but I think it's warranted. I think that's due to a lack of faith that the team will look at those numbers and then decide to use him more. But Ben Johnson's an extremely talented coach. I don't really doubt that. I mean, 310 might be like a spot or two too rich for me here, but I think he's one of those typical players where like the longer the season goes on, the redrafts go on, the higher his ADP climbs. And I'm excited about what we can do next year. Yeah, his numbers were off the chart.
He had to make it in the video. I wasn't going to let him go beyond the third round.
Yeah, I was debating between him and Ted. All right, well, then I'll take someone who probably should have been drafted a while back. He's going to be really high up in your list right there, and that's Saquon Barkley.
Boring,
he's not going to be exciting to talk. He's not going to be as exciting as you yell boring to talk about. But we know Saquon's talent. I mean, we're still like a year and a half removed from an incredible season of his with some highlight reel plays.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I think you touched on this earlier, and I think the reason he falls a little bit here, at least in our draft, but also the analyst consensus that I've seen, is maybe a lack of faith in what the Eagles' offense will look like next year, and a lack of faith in the O-line being as good as they were, let's say 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, Saquon, similar to CMC, and in my opinion, Derrick Henry, is a player that will continue to be good until he retires or until he starts to decline severely. I'd feel really happy taking him right at the end of the third round.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is who I would have had next. It's not the most fun. I discussed the same thing when we were talking about AJ Brown with my concerns for this Eagles offense, but they always find a way to get it done, or at least they have in the past handful of years. So you can't be that concerned with a guy that talented. Who do you want to round this thing out with? I'm between Drake May, and Lamar Jackson. Do you care?
Don't get me all sad.
Yeah,
why don't we go with Bucky Irving, dude? How come?
Nah, we're gonna go with Lamar Jackson. Action Jackson, baby. No, I'm excited for what this coaching change could mean. It could mean disappointment if they bring in like a Jesse Minter or something like that. I mean, if he hires the right offensive coordinator, then maybe I'm overstating it. I like Jesse Minter as like a head coaching candidate, but obviously he's a defensive focused guy. But if we get Kevin Stefanski, if we get Mike McDaniel as the OC or head coach or something like that, then they could be right back into form and Lamar could go nuclear once again, which is what I'm hoping for. But
too good to go too much further past Josh Allen as the QB1.
Exactly.
I think that if we were to have kept going, I think we would have seen a little bit of a QB run here with Drake May off the board and probably Trevor Lawrence and Caleb at some point in the next couple of rounds, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, a nice dream scenario could be Mike McDaniel, OC, Robert Saleh, DC, and then some just random schmuck you as the head coach for all I care. It'd be one heck
I'll
of
do
a
it.
team.
I'll
No,
do
yeah.
it.
I'm excited. There's a lot of the Ravens team as a whole is a lot of uncertainty. I don't expect the other position players, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, to go high in drafts next year. I don't think they should. We just don't know enough, and obviously this year was a little disappointing. But all right, man, I'm excited we did this. I think it's not just information; it's also like an exercise for ourselves and something that we can look back on in a couple months and hate ourselves for.
I'm excited for it.
Or it's going to be spot on.
It's going to be grand.
But yeah, I think that was a lot of fun. You want to give some closing remarks?
Yeah, man. If you guys stuck with us till the end, as always, we appreciate you. Thank you very much for being here. Drop down some comments to let us know what you think of the mock draft. If you think we were totally off, if you agree with our takes, if there's any specific players that you'd rather see higher or lower, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and hit that sub button and that notification bell if you want to stay up to date with all of our latest releases. Check the link in the description for our Discord if you want to join an even deeper conversation. We got a nice community over there. Come talk to us. We would love to have you. But yeah, I think that'll do it. Vishy, I appreciate you for hopping on, and this was a lot of fun. But we'll catch you guys in the next video.
Peace.
Peace.